Welcome to this video 15, the last in the series concerning the themes counting, addition and subtraction. In video 1 I covered my basic approaches to mathematics and incidentally to learning. And before I start here, I think it's important to recap on certain aspects of those which also apply to all learning. In the 1980s, the British government's Cockcroft report commissioned research which showed what we as teachers already knew. There is a wide range of ability in any given group. When comparing this to the year group system, or what I call the block system, there is clearly a mismatch. The current systems across most of the world fail the children dismally, as they only faintly, if at all, organise their system to accept that learning is individual and a continuum. Thus, setting specific learning goals for groups, which by definition have a wide performance range, is inappropriate, when not irresponsible. The introduction of the verbs ought to or should for learning goals is a hopeless effort to try and get out of this self-made problem. During my years as in-service teacher training and partly during my time as teacher, I have had many conversations with educationalists on this point. I have been met with either a denial of the obvious, a marked reluctance to discuss the failings of the current system, or a show of helplessness. Of course, it would be most uncomfortable for both teachers and officials to realise that the current approach is not effective and needs changing, as this then requires new effort and new thoughts. Unfortunately, very few wish to consider this as in, please don't rock the boat, I'm very content as I am. Realistically, maximising each child's learning needs does not come to the fore in most of the current systems, other than by tampering or applying patches, e.g. by throwing in remedial lessons for both slow and fast learners, or perhaps other materials. My response has been to develop investigative, intuitive learning on a concrete basis, which I've been able to employ within the restrictive practices of state education in both England and Germany. I think there should be learning opportunities for all, solely on a learning success basis, and so I sought and found open-ended impulse activities. See my video 1 for the background and videos 2 to 13 for activities. And now, in this video, I come to a monitoring and assessment system and a testing system, both of which aim to recognise that learning is individual and a continuum. In video 14, I showed the interconnection of the various parts of my approach and the opportunities for feedback. Now I will show my monitoring and assessment system in detail and my novel approach for testing. Here are some general requirements for a monitoring and assessment. What I've noticed is that the systems I've been required to use often failed to emphasise success, they were not accessible for all, and they certainly weren't time-saving. They consumed an incredible amount of time. The monitoring and assessment system, which I have developed, aims to fulfil the following features. This monitoring and assessment system for quantity and arithmetic covers 8 pages. and that is for counting, addition, subtraction, multiplication and division. The first 4 pages refer to counting, addition and subtraction. The teacher chooses a date, here the 20th of September, and a colour, blue, and colours in all that the child has achieved up to this date. After that, before the next date chosen, the teacher can always enter in progress with a pencil. The next date, here the 23rd of October, is chosen and a colour to go with it, here red. And then the teacher colours in all that the child has achieved up to this point. Another date follows, here the 14th of November, and a new colour, and it is coloured in what the children have achieved. This is recording success as a continuum, and as such there is no need to be accurate. The children will progress, and any inaccuracies will soon be ironed out. The teacher also records the colours and dates on a separate form, so that there's no need to write these dates more than once. Here is page 3, which covers number bonds for subtraction or decomposition and the early parts of subtraction itself. As before, the teacher colours in the progress of the children using various colours to particular dates, as shown here. Governments, local authorities, state authorities, and very often parents are extremely keen on testing. Here are 2 quotes which are typical of the requirements in syllabuses in both Germany and England. But my experience is that these local authorities or governments, in setting their own tests, often do not meet their own goals. They are just paying lip service to what should be, rather than what they actually do. So what are the general requirements for testing? A basis of can do and show success. And how does a class test measure up to this, or that applied by the local authority? There's partly failure and there's partly success. So it's a failure in itself, because there's failure there. An alternative is required, and the goal is success for all. This approach to written tests is on a basis of can do, and the child decides everything. The child decides when, what, and how. When, the date; what, the content and the extent; and how, whether it's mental arithmetic, written, illustrative, or concrete. The result will be success. And here's how it happens in practice for the example addition. The child writes their name and date, and then decides for either marbles, concrete, mathematics, concrete, written, illustrative, or mental arithmetic. And then chooses the 5 examples. The child will then work on this test, and here are the examples of how it could turn out. If it were for marbles, this would be the result. If it were for mathematics, this would be the result. If it were for mental arithmetic, this would be the result. If, however, it is only going to be solved in a written manner, then the result could look something like this. As can be seen, The child decides on the degree of challenge. It could be quite simple, or moderately challenging, or a further development. And of course, there are plenty of stages in between. If a child does not know what test to set, then the child can refer to other people's tests or to a bank of tests which have been kept as reference. As class teacher, I have a file for my class, and in it I have all the pages from the monitoring and assessment system for each child. And then I can turn to a particular child and very easily see how they are progressing. If I have visits from parents, I can very easily explain what the progress of the child was in reference to my page where I have all the dates and all the colours recorded. For instance, here I can say this child could only count up to 15 by the 20th of September, but by the 23rd of October up to 30, and by the 14th of November up to 200, and so on. It's my experience that the parents are very impressed. If they ask, how can we help our child? It's very easy to use this system to help them decide. They can look at what the child has achieved, and then we can ask the child, or the parents can decide what they would like to improve or extend next. The updating of these sheets is done by myself in consultation with the children, who also have a copy, in consultation with the tests, and probably in consultation with the parents as well. Well, that concludes this video, video 15, which rounds up the topics counting, addition, subtraction, and includes an introduction and an explanation of the system that I use. That's the activity grid for all the activities and games, the portfolio, the monitoring and assessment system, and the self-testing, and all the ways of using this for feedback. I hope you found a lot which you can use, and don't forget there's downloads on my website and links to all the videos. I'll be continuing somewhat later with multiplication, division and other mathematical topics, and also dealing with language in a similar sort of way. So I say, bye for now.